Welcome into Bears Weekly, powered by IGS Energy, a Chicago Bears network production. Bears Weekly is brought to you by Advocate Healthcare, Athletico Physical Therapy, CDW, Connie's Pizza, IGS Energy, and Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Jeff Joniak, a.k.a. the Mayor of Bearsville, and his sidekick, Tom the Surfmaster Thayer.
Well, a fourth draft class of rookies now in the Bears' den, selected by General Manager Ryan Poles and his football operations staff in concert with head coach Ben Johnson and his staff. The collaborative effort drawing rave reviews as the 2025 version of the Bears taking shape. Welcome into Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 and the Chicago Bears Radio Network with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer and former Bears quarterback Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio. I'm Jeff Joniak. Coming up in the program, we visit with one of the Bears' 3 second-round picks, defensive lineman Shemar Turner out of Texas A&M. You'll enjoy the conversation. Thanks to our producers, Dan Barilli, Jordan Tredup, and in the ESPN studios tonight, Jack McGrath, the executive producer of the Bears Radio Network, Eric Ostrowski. Good evening, gentlemen. And we're still talking draft, Jim Miller. You're situated down there in South Florida. You were at the draft in Green Bay. Tommy tells me 600,000 people showed up. I still don't know where they put them, Jim. Was it a good experience up there?
Yeah, I thought they did a good job. They got them all in, but a lot of friends of mine were in the mosh pit, and after Green Bay selected in the first round, it emptied out. There were only 6 guys left, and I think they were all my friends. They all went to the bar to celebrate, is what the Green Bay Packer fans did. So it was Green Bay-oriented, that's for sure.
Tom, it's I think like Chicago, buddy.
Right. Well, that's the thing about it is once the NFL put this thing on a place-to-place type of draft opportunity for the cities that don't have Super Bowls and stuff, I think it's neat to see what the next city did. What the next city does, Green Bay did a good job with their population and what they have surrounding Lambeau Field. And I don't know where it is next year, but
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Oh, well, that will be interesting because Pittsburgh, of all the NFL stadiums outside of Soldier Field, it's probably my most favorite stadium to go to because of the loyalty of the fans and, how they support that organization and that football team. So I bet Pittsburgh will have an enormous showing, a lot like Chicago did.
And Tom and I discussed a lot of this on the Bears Etc. podcast. Jim, our review of the draft. What is your review of the Bears draft, our first chance to talk to you post-draft?
Yeah, I like it. I like what they did. They got some weapons for their young quarterback. I think we know the emphasis of their new head coach, Ben Johnson, a lot of 12 personnel. I'm sure you guys talked about that. You got to look at Loveland as more of a receiving type of tight end. Burden's just an absolute burner. There's not a defensive back that's going to run for him step for step. So he definitely can stretch the field. It'll be interesting how he's utilized. Obviously, Detroit, look at their use of Williams, who's a burner up there. I think Ozzie Trapillo, don't sleep on the tackle. I actually talked to Bill O'Brien, the head coach of Boston College. He said he's a heck of a player. At times he can get a little too high, but I think you look at him as a swing tackle. He can play both right and left if needed in a pinch. And I think if he would have played day one, I don't think that'd be an issue for him at either right or left tackle. And then obviously with the loss of a linebacker here in the offseason, they get Hippolyte, who's a speedy linebacker, comes with a lot of blazing speed. I know we'll talk to Shamar as well, Shemar Turner, to add to the defensive line. But I think overall areas of need that were attacked, but I think obviously specifically to help out the young quarterback early.
And, Tom, where is your head at right now in terms of the offensive line? This morning on Cap and Hood on ESPN 1000, the flagship of the Bears Radio Network, Ryan Poles talked about, they may let him start out at left tackle, have that competition with Karan Amagashi, see where Braxton Jones is at, and see how it all plays out. But he emphasized that he really would like to get this offensive line kind of settled earlier rather than later, as opposed to making flip-flops all around the offensive line. He'd like to get, however long that takes, and get something settled with 5 guys and have them work together throughout camp.
Well, Jeff, I think before they ever put spikes on, I think they're a better offensive line right now than what they started the season last year and the way they concluded it, because there were so many question marks. There were guys that weren't practicing. You weren't able to develop the consistency with the rookie quarterback. And so I think that really stunts your growth. So I think if you got 4/5 of that offensive line almost decided already, and then you kind of figure out what you can do at the left tackle position. You have a competitive veteran like Braxton Jones that's coming from an injury. You got Karan Amagaji that's got a tremendous upside. He's got the template. He's got the intelligence. He's got the athleticism. He's got a little bit of experience, and he knows what he needed to work on. And Dan Rochard, the new offensive line coach, knows what he needs to work on with him. And like Jim said, Ozzie Trapillo, he's got everything that you're asking for an offensive lineman. He's got dedication, durability. He comes from a program that preaches discipline, and he's got NFL bloodlines. And I think he understands what it takes to be a Division I college football player, but what it's going to take to be an NFL pro.
And Jim, I know you have a good relationship with the Boston College coach Bill O'Brien from all the years in the NFL. And I'm sure with his check mark on that, it means something to you.
Yeah,
on Ozzie.
Yeah, certain schools, they're known for certain things. Iowa, obviously, tight ends. Penn State.
Oh, hold on.
Notre Dame's tight end, you, Jim. So let's get that straight right now.
I was going to put Notre Dame in there. Penn State's in there as well. But Boston College is known for offensive linemen. They've had a lot. I mean, look at Chris Lindstrom. He's considered one of the best guards in football. He's a Boston College player down there for the Atlanta Falcons. So I think Ozzie Trapillo, he was given a stamp of approval. Head coach said he's tough as nails, and this guy, he'll play, and he's played a lot of football. I'd say that about Luke Newman, who they took out of Michigan State. Obviously, Dan Rochard knows a lot about him. I don't think Luke Newman missed a college game.
No.
And he went against some top-tier talent as well. But, yeah, I think Ozzie, if that battle, and it will be competitive, and I think that's a good thing. It's going to raise the level of play of Amagaji. I would think Braxton Jones, he knows he's on notice, and Ozzie Trapillo's hungry. He knows that spot's available too. So Cream will always rise to the top. They spent a lot of money on their offensive line, and I tend to agree with Ryan Poles. They've got to fix their O-line. They've led the league in sacks. Granted, if you were to go back with Justin Fields, he missed 5 games, whatever it was, 2 years ago. But they've led the league in sacks the last 3 years. If people aren't aware of that. That can't happen. It can't happen again. So you got to address it.
Yeah, and I think he's it's almost like seeing a bad movie over and over again with the amount of changes on the offensive line, many times due to in-game issues, whether it be injury or performance. But I think last year it was 23 in-game and 21 overall combinations. Tom, we all agree. It happens, but it can't happen to that extent. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels a little bit, aren't you, in terms of that chemistry? And we only look at it, not we, but I think most people only look at it from a quarterback's perspective and pass protection, but it does impact the running game as well. And that's important here.
Well, the thing about it is you never had a chance to develop chemistry because you never had a group of guys in there 5 at a time that stayed in there for an extended period of time. From the time Ryan Bates got hurt until just the other
Kevin.
issues that they had up and down the line of scrimmage, that there was no consistency in the group in front of Caleb. So you can't become familiar with that group. And I think Coleman Shelton did a really nice job at center, saving that position and helping that offensive line have some consistency at a position.
Well,
and Darnell, sorry.
Yeah, it's just how do you stay on schedule? You have that many negative plays, and even running the football, you have that many negative plays, whether it's the lack of continuity, whether it's the changing of the offensive line. Good luck calling a game. The Bears, they had a new offense coordinator. What was it, week 9, week 10? I mean, it did not go well. It's hard. If you're not on schedule, good luck. Good luck, because the minute you start getting in 2nd and 15, 2nd and 12, 2nd and 13, you're running games out of the equation. As Tom knows, I mean, if you call run play on 1st and 2nd or first down and it's a negative 2 yards or 3 yards, 2nd and 13 is not going to be another run. It's going to be a pass play. You're almost forced into that situation from just the way coordinators think. And so, and then you're one-dimensional. Team's already got you on your heels, and you're playing right into that formula. So those negative plays just cannot happen. They can't happen.
And from that perspective alone, the Bears are going to be better in 2025. I think we can all agree that will not be tolerated, and that won't happen. Hopefully, we knock on wood here for 2025. All right, when we come back, Shemar Turner joins us. My sit-down with the second-round pick out of Texas A&M. He's coming up next here on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by IGS Energy. Well, first of all, congratulations. Welcome to the NFL, but more importantly, welcome to the charter franchise of the National Football League. How does it feel to be a Chicago Bear?
Man, it feels great. I'm not going to lie. I don't even know where to start. My mind's still all over the place, bro. But it's exciting. I'm not going to lie, man. Coming to a great city like this with the fan base that y'all have, like selling out 99.1% of season tickets is crazy.
You've done your homework.
All y'all tickets is crazy. So, yeah, I feel like playing for a city like this and doing it the right way is going to be fun. I'm not going to lie.
Well, listen,
it's going to be fun.
You saw the Lombardi Trophy in the lobby,
Mm-hmm.
so that's 1985. It's been a minute now, 40 years. But they always say, you win here, they love you forever. You're a legend forever. So that's how passionate this fan base is. It's why I love what I do. They're going to love what you do, too. You seem to play with that emotion and organic passion that Bears fans embrace. Do I have you figured out a little bit here? You play that way.
Yes, sir. No, yeah, I play pretty passionate, man. I love this game so much. It done done so much for me, man, and my family. Like, and you can't do nothing but pay your respects back by, playing hard and having fun, bouncing around.
When you were introduced to the Chicago media on the Zoom call last night, I think you were answering questions, but at the same time, as you indicated, your head was spinning. And I don't think you believed it was happening. Like, that was my impression. Well, you tell me, though, because you were living it. What was going through your mind?
That I really just got picked, and it still didn't feel real. And it probably still won't feel real till I put the pads and jersey on, the helmet and pads on, man. It just felt like a dream come true, and I couldn't stop smiling. I know I apologized a lot yesterday, but it's crazy, bro.
Don't ever apologize. I mean, that's the beauty of being the raw emotion that everybody feels. It's all the hard work that none of us know what you did.
Yes,
right?
Sir.
You only know what it took to get here. And I think that's the cool thing about the draft, because no matter where a player goes, whether it's the number 1 pick or the 257th pick, you did it. You reached one of your most significant goals. You're in the 1/10 of 1% of humanity that can do it, right?
A lot of people do not get the opportunity. So no matter where you go, like, it's just another opportunity. And it's an opportunity that not a lot of people at all get to do. And they dream about it as kids and still don't get to do it. So just getting this opportunity.
Are there people you know that thought you'd never get here?
Yeah, it's a few people. It's a few people I know that probably thought I was going to go a few different places with everything. But, just staying on the right path, keeping my mind clear, keeping my faith high, and praying to that man and keeping him in the middle of everything. Been keeping me pretty good, bro. So steering clear, bro.
All right, so you get the call from Ryan Poles. At that moment, can you take me there and what this last 24 hours has been, and then talking to Coach Ben Johnson?
Man, getting that phone call I was trying to hold my emotions back. I couldn't. They took over on me. But man, getting that call was special. Being able to change you and your family's life, you and your family's last name, you can start a legacy. You can create an actual good background and good base for your family's name. Somebody can always look you up. This pawpaw, uncle, cousin, whatever. I can always look that last name up and say, man, he started this for us. And hopefully I can keep it going. But yeah, it was a dream come true, to answer your question.
Yeah, that is cool. That is cool. How does your skill set complement the defensive line here now. You're going to get to know them quicker than you think. It's a new scheme here, obviously, with Dennis Allen, but he likes long guys that play violent. So,
Amen.
Do you check all those boxes for Coach Allen?
Yes, sir. Oh, my God. We're going to play violent. We're going to be physical. And I feel like this D-line, man, I feel like, bro, if you get somebody in there that can jump that thing off and get that fire started, it's going to be scary in here in Chicago. I'm not going to lie. But that energy, bro, I'm going to bring, bro. It's not only when I'm making plays, but when I see guys that I've been working with and grinding with make plays, like, we're going to bounce around. And that defense going to be fun. This team is going to be crazy.
Have you always played this way back to Pee Wee?
Yeah.
With this juice?
Just juiced up. I don't know what it is, bro. It's just a love for the game, I guess. I don't know. It's just, when I get on that field, I put the helmet on. It's just like a whole nother, like, button, a whole nother Shemar Turner.
Do you remember the first tackle you ever made?
Man, it was actually we used to do like an alley drill in Little League, and it was against Byron Murphy, which was crazy. Yeah, so he used to play running back for us, the DeSoto Dolphins, and we was doing a tackling drill. We doing the alley. He was at running back, and I'm a linebacker. So yeah, that collision was one to be remembered. Yes, sir.
I think that's fantastic. How do you think you fit the culture that Ben Johnson is trying to create here? And he's not trying; he is creating here.
I feel like I fit right in with everything he got going on, man. Fast, physical, and attack. You just go, and literally your hard work and dedication gonna take you everywhere you want to go. So, put his hard work and that go get in there, man. You're gonna be. I feel like I fit this system pretty well.
I read where you idolized the great Ray Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Is this accurate?
Yes, that's my dog.
I think you have that same energy.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Why Ray?
Because, like, that's how he played.
Yeah.
Being a big dude like that, like, he had his strengths, he had his weaknesses, but nobody wanted to come across that field ever. And, like, his work ethic, even after he was Ray Lewis, even after he was 5'2", like, he was still going. He's still a dog. He's still doing it today. Like, just looking up the guys that have success and still go after they had a success. Those are guys I really magnate towards.
You look over that right shoulder right there, and you see that logo? Yeah. We've had guys just like that. In the history of this brand, Dick Butkus. Right? Steve McMichael, Dan Hampton, Richard Dent, the 85 Bears Super Bowl MVP. Brian Urlacher. Okay, Mike Singletary. Yeah, the fire is there for sure. I saw this written about you too, and I had to write it down. This was even before I knew we were drafting you. All adrenaline all the time. And the way you're moving here, you can't sit still. Are you all adrenaline all the time?
Yeah, no, it's always go. Especially when I get excited, especially when I'm anxious and ready to go. Yeah, everything is always. I'm a pretty intense dude, they say. So
with a smile on your face, though. I love that intensity.
Yes, sir.
Intensity. What was it like playing on that defensive line? I mean, that was almost a famous recruiting class of 5-star players like yourself. Another Shamar, who happened to be another beast and another fiery player. And obviously, Nick Scorton comes over from Purdue. And I'm sure there are others that I'm not remembering, but that was a pretty potent defense.
Yeah, no, having guys around you that can go and that you pretty much don't have to do that to and worry about, like you can actually go, man, it was great. I'm not gonna lie. Be going to A&M and playing with that defensive line the years I had, man, it was good. It was always good, and we always had some pretty good players. But this year, having two edges that can do their thing out there was lovely. It's lovely, especially as a 3-tech. It's lovely.
Do you care where you play along the defensive line, and what's the best weight you feel the best at to do everything you want to do?
No, I want to be that chess piece, that puzzle piece where I shoot on third down, they can put me at 5 technique, or shoot if they want to throw me in at 0, 1 technique, 2 out, literally wherever they want to put me, whenever. Like, I love being that player for people, love being that player for guys and coaches. So my best playing weight was actually the spring. Was that my junior season? Was that spring or fall camp? I think it was spring, right at 290. So 290, 295, I feel like I can go.
Do some damage. All right, DeSoto High School, last one. DeSoto, Texas, that's where you're from. Von Miller's name comes up too. So you kind of have this whole thing going on with all these these great players. And I don't know if you've ever been to Vaughn's camps. I mean, they're legendary, right? Is that another symbol just of where you've come from and where you're now here, where you've arrived at?
Yes, sir. Vaughn is definitely a great symbol, a great guy to look at, especially when coming from DeSoto. That DeSoto pipeline is crazy. And we work hard, and that's what we pretty much instill while you're at DeSoto. You're going to bust your ass, you're going to work hard, and you're going to go. And that intensity is always going to be there. And I feel like that's where it all started with Vaughn.
It's just the way we like it here in Chicago. Welcome, and congratulations, man. Appreciate you. Welcome to Chicago.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, Shemar Turner, entertaining interview, guys, and I got to tell you, Jim and Tom, he was moving in the chair. The legs are pumping. He's clicking his fingers. That wasn't me doing that. That was him. I got a real kick out of him. And this morning, also on ESPN 1000 with Cap and Hood, Ryan Poles addressed. He'd like to see what kind of creativity Dennis Allen can do with the length of a Shemar Turner, the length of a Javon Dexter outside as well.
Yeah, you still have to start with the explosiveness of Grady Jarrett, because he's going to be the instigator of pressures if he can have a good three-technique season where he is exposing offensive linemen being out of position, because then you're opening the creases for the outside rushers and the other inside rushers. And then I think it's going to open up the versatility opportunities for Dennis Allen. I mean, you have characters right now that you could go to a five-man defensive line that's not run very often in the NFL, but it was ran back in the day. And then you can have an asset at every position. I love his attitude because he doesn't care where he is going to play, and he feels he can play everywhere and at 290 pounds. If you're a 290-pound outside force in the run game, I mean, you're doing a lot to create a winning mismatch against some of those exterior blockers. So I'm super excited for him. I hope he plays to his attitude, because he's got the attitude that belongs in that locker room.
I don't think he's got the length that you're looking for. I do think he could be a penetrating inside interior rusher. He is relentless. He's got a temper now, too. Like when you say, he's shifting in his chair. I mean, this guy does play with a lot of emotion at the end of the day. Does have a ton of production, 35 starts for his college career at Texas A&M, but it really is attitude. He plays with a lot of attitude, and he uses that energy, I guess that emotion that you were tapping into, Jeff, definitely to his advantage is what I'd say for Shamar.
Yep. He wore a single-digit number on his college jersey. Do they know what number these guys are, what he's going to be yet?
Not yet. I just looked that up. I want him. Tony's holding that one close to the vest.
Yeah, because I know that choice. I don't think he can. Can you wear it in the NFL, a single digit on the defensive line?
Yeah,
all right.
Of course you can.
Then give him his choice.
All right.
Kyler Gordon's not going to like that.
No. We're going to take a break. That's Tom Thayer, Jim Miller. I'm Jeff Joniak. More when we come back here on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
This is ESPN Chicago, WNVP, WTBC, HD2 Chicago, a Good Karma Brands radio station.
This is Bears Weekly with the voice of the Bears for 24 years, Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network.
Sale Wednesday, May 14th. Mark your calendars. That's the same day the schedule comes out, if all goes well. Jeff Joniak, Tom Thayer, Jim Miller, as we get you set for the 2025 season. Minicamp coming up next week for the rookies, and should be a fun look at everybody. More conversation, fellas, on some other positions. Obviously, the tackle position is one of interest, but the running back position with the returning DeAndre Swift, Roschon Johnson. You've got obviously Booker. You've got also
Ian Wheeler.
Ian Wheeler is what I'm saying. Excuse me, Ian Wheeler. I keep calling him Booker. Whacked back to last preseason, and I don't know why. It's bugging me to no end. If I have to say so myself, but yeah, Ian Booker and some others, including a draft pick that came in and just popping some tape on. Jim, I was talking to Tom about Kyle Monangai from Rutgers. Watching him in pass pro is kind of a treat very physical guy. That's for their 7th-round pick. But Poles was asked about that this morning as well on Cap and Hood, and there's options about signing a running back in free agency that they could explore, but they want to see what the current room is like, see what the staff thinks before anything else is brought to the table, Tommy. Yeah,
well, there's going to be plenty out there in free agency. I mean, certainly because of the running back position, I do think it took a good step forward. I think everybody's talking about how the running back position was devalued. I think with the year that Saquon Barkley had last year, he rushes for 2,000. He kind of put Philadelphia on their back. I thought the year Josh Jacobs had, here the Raiders get rid of him. I thought he performed very well for the Green Bay Packers. And there were 28 running backs drafted in this year's draft. There were 30 guys that they expected to be drafted. So you do see kind of a resurgence at that position. And obviously with Saquon getting the biggest deal in NFL history, I'm not saying that all backs are going to get up there with him and Christian McCaffrey. I think it's James Cook right now for the Bills. He wants like $15 million a year. I don't see the Bills doing that, but it kind of put the position back on the map. So, productive backs. And I think it wasn't until round 4. Obviously, 2 went in the first round. Then there started to be a picking in the second and the third round. And then really the 4th round, running back position started to flow pretty steadily. And obviously the Bears got a good one in the 7th round with the Big Tenor. Very powerful back. Guy loves football. Same thing. And, he'll have a shot. And I think for the Bears, we know they got to be able to run the football. They were 27th in the league last year running the ball. Hopefully the continuity on the offensive line will solidify it. And I believe even Ben Johnson. I think they're going to do more under the center stuff with Caleb Williams. So you would think play action is going to be a big part of it, and they've got to be able to sell it.
Jim, when you talk about Monangai, and he comes from a Greg Schiano-led program, he's a really serious, head coach that really has high standards for the work ethic of everybody on his team, offense and defense. That's why Hippolyte, I'm also encouraged by him, because I think if you make it through a Greg Schiano program, it tells me a little bit about your background and they're tough and what you're willing to do. So Ian Wheeler and Monangai, they're going to get every chance to impress me if I'm Ben Johnson and the whole offensive coaching staff, because if these two guys can come in and work with the DeAndre Swift and a Roshan Johnson, and you're not counting on them for 40 snaps a game, but maybe you're counting on them for 10 to 14 snaps a game, you never know what you can do in helping their development. Monangai has the reputation of being a willing blocker. So you think of Ben Johnson and what he wants to do with the backfield, play action and everything. Maybe he'll open up more opportunities for himself because of the dirty work he's willing to do.
Well, what Tom said about a Greg Schiano program, I'll give you a back right now that beat out a first-round draft pick, and that is Isaiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs. Tough guy, goes into Kansas City. He beat out their first-round draft pick, and he's ahead of Kareem Hunt right now, who they drafted in the 3rd round. A couple of years ago, obviously went to Cleveland. Now he's back in Kansas City. But Pacheco was the same way, just tough as nails. And here he's the guy knows nothing but Super Bowls. Every year he's been in the league, he's been in a Super Bowl. And he's got 2 championships under his belt, and they lost this last one. So Pacheco has been a big part of it. Another Greg Schiano kid.
I was looking at Jamar Gibbs, how many touches he had. Montgomery, who missed a couple games, 3 games. It was about 300 touches for Gibbs, a little over 200 for Montgomery. And so do you use that as a template, or does it not matter because it's going to be a different kind of offense?
I do. The thing about touches, where are they and when are they? Because it's not always runs in between the tackle. There's a lot of that play action passing, those exterior passes, those screens and stuff. So if you can put the running back in a more favorable tackle position by the time he gets that touch, I think that's when you kind of see what they're capable of doing outside the tackle box, and maybe that benefits your offense as well.
All right, we're going to pick it up from there. When we come back, another segment of Bears Weekly ahead as we take a look at some other topics in the league, 5th-year options, and some draft recap in the division what they did and how it stacks up as this arms race in the NFC North continues. Here on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
You're tuned into Bears Weekly with Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network. Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. Jeff, Tom, and Jim here on Bears Weekly. So I know there have been tons of grades given. I don't like doing that. I don't think it's necessary or really it's just an exercise, and it's interesting after the draft. Already putting together mock drafts for the 26th draft, which blows my mind. We can't even let the paint dry. This is the annual process, though, around the league with draft crazy NFL. That this is the case. But also, this one piqued my curiosity, though. Pro Football Focus. What player was your favorite draft pick from each team? And I thought it was interesting. So it was written that Luther Burden was theirs because of the value. They thought he was a first-round pick. There was a second-round pick. But as I started to contemplate it, I kind of like where they were going with this because of how Ben Johnson values that slot receiver. Now, maybe if it wasn't an impactful player like Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got to give Amon-Ra St. Brown credit for developing as well, putting the work in as a fourth-round pick, but also Ben Johnson figuring out the best way to utilize this player and create matchups, and he made him into an all-pro. We touched on that last week. So I think Burden's going to find himself in the slot quite a bit, and so from that lens, I'm looking at that for me as a really important piece to this puzzle.
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to give myself a D- because in the last segment I said that Hippolyte went to Rutgers, but he went to Maryland. So I wanted, out of due respect to him, I wanted to correct that. You know, there's one thing I like about this draft is because of what Ben Johnson has the ability to do with every one of these players. But to me, the betterment of this football team is still on the line of scrimmage. I think Burden can be a top-notch receiver in everything he's going to do. But again, Ben Johnson, no block, no rock. And so that's one of the disciplines that you have to get back into when you go from a college program primary receiver to earning your way on the football field as a wide receiver. But to me, it's still about the line of scrimmage. And if you get Turner and Trapillo to kind of morph into the type of players that they've been drafted to be, they could have an enormous role as rookies and going forward. So I'm interested to see what they do. But I also think Burden, he's got that, you know, kind of that first round reputation, and I'm excited to see how Ben develops his relationship with him along with Antoine Randall, the coach.
Yeah, I think for Burden, I think that's a good comparison when you compare him to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who probably doesn't have top-end speed, but, boy, he's got the ability to separate, and he's got the ability to get open. If you go look at Burden and his play at Missouri, he played really well against the top-level teams, you know, where he was getting a lot of production against some of the best defenses out there. This guy can separate, and he can make plays. And I'm not saying he's slow. He's not slow. He can, you know, he ran a 4.41, so he's close to getting in that 4.39 barrier. So he's got enough speed to really make big plays down the field. But, man, he can separate, and that's what Amon-Ra St. Brown does for the Lions to get open. A lot of playmaking ability.
And so does Colston Loveland when he runs his routes. He can separate at the top of his routes. That's going to be fun to watch as well. You often wonder, you know, as you're watching games, until you actually watch the tape, you know, because you can't see everybody on the field at once. As a fan, you're following the ball. Tom's following the offensive line to start the play. Are they getting open? Are players getting open? Why is nobody open? And some of that is the route running ability. If they're not great route runners, they're not creating separation, or the coverage is so sticky. You know, those are all parts of this equation. I think Ben's really going to enhance that.
Right, but I have a question for Jim here because, you know, one thing that I think Caleb has to do moving forward is what's open. because you're not always going to create that separation where you're throwing to an open target where the defensive coverage guy is trailing you. Sometimes you're putting it in an area where the defender's close to you, but you have to have the willingness and the understanding of what open really is. And so, Jim, when I think about the future of Caleb, he's got to understand that as well.
Yeah, he's got to be able to trust that those guys like Luther Burden, that guy can get on defenders and stack them really quickly. What do I mean by stack them? He can, say if it's a trail technique by a defensive back, say he's playing the slot, he beats the nickelback off the line of scrimmage, he has already stacked the nickelback. So the nickelback is now in a trail technique. And say Burden is running an over route across the field. And that trail technique, right when he puts his foot in the ground to start heading across the field on his over route, that's where Caleb has got to trust that Burden's going to win that foot race. He's already got the defender beat by, say, a step to 2 steps because of how he stacked him and how he's already put the defensive back behind him. Now just throw him to the open area. He may not look open once he's off the line of scrimmage, but when you trust where the timing of where the throw needs to be, that Luther's going to be there, and he'll already have stacked the defensive back where he's trailing him from behind. And so those are the type of trust things that Caleb has to get familiar with, and just knowing his receiver and that he's going to come down with the football, because Burden's got great hands. That actually was the comparison with him. He's like an Amon-Ra St. Brown. The guy catches everything. And so you just got to trust that he's a good route runner, and where that ball needs to be, he's going to be in the right spot where it needs to be caught.
Jim, when did you start trusting your receivers are going to be open?
Good question.
Well, I credit Todd Haley a lot. It was fun seeing Des White call the draft picks for the Chicago Bears, because those guys were all young. When Marty Booker, and obviously they drafted David Terrell and even Des White, that was a young group. Marcus Robinson was hurt, his back injury at that point. He was still healing up, and so we had a lot of young receivers. And I just remember Todd Haley coming off the field someday said, Jim, I will whip these guys into shape. They will be where they need to be when you need to throw the ball. And over time, you started to trust him, especially Marty. Marty and I worked a lot together, and I knew exactly what he was going to do. And it just that trust, even if it was double coverage, I knew Marty was coming down with it. I just knew it,
Marty
and I
Booker,
was going to let it
everybody.
fly.
Marty Booker, one of my favorite players to call games with. You ever talk to Marty, out of curiosity?
Yeah,
how's he doing?
Talk to Marty.
How's he doing?
Oh, he's doing great. He's doing great. His hands are still big. He can throw a football farther than I could, for God's sake, as a Bear. When he got in there and he threw it about 80 yards, I'm like, hell, why didn't you line it up under center, for God's sake?
So that receiver room's going to be listen, training camp should be exciting because, yes, you got DJ, you got Rome, you got Burden, you got Olamide Zaccheaus, Devin Duvernay, as a return specialist as well, Tyler Scott, Samuri Torrey, Miles Boykin, the local product, Maurice Alexander, who's got experience with Detroit, also a candidate in the return game. Couple of free agents, Jedi Walker, he's 6'3", 203 out of Texas A&M, and J.P. Richardson, 5'11", 195 out of TCU. So there's going to be a bunch of guys. Walker blocked a couple punts in college. Richardson, punt returner. So the competition for all these roles are going to be very intriguing on the offensive side of the ball as well as the defensive side of the ball.
At the end of the season last year, Tyler Scott did some really nice things on the punt team.
He sure did.
So if he could come in here and continue a rise on special teams, and Coach Hightower gives him a little bit more leeway where maybe, okay, if he's on punt coverage team, maybe I can put him on kickoff return or punt return, not as the returner, but as in a blocking position. So I think you have to open every opportunity for yourself if you're competing for a roster spot at the receiver position.
All right, we're going to go inside the division when we come back. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by IGS Energy. Jeff Joniak, Tom Thayer, Jim Miller, our final segment. I want to emphasize this. I know how both of you guys feel about youth football and into the high schools, and it's important for the growth of the sport. But a total of the NFL came out with this today. 246 high schools contributed to the 257 players drafted. IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, had the most with 3, including Tyler Booker and Jahad Campbell. Texas, the number 1 state, with 37. And over the past 8 years, 687 players from Texas and Florida have been selected in the NFL draft. That's an amazing number. Split, pretty much perfect. 4 from Illinois this year. And for the 19th time in 20 years, at least one player drafted from a high school outside the United States. This year, 1 from Australia, 1 from Canada. So the math is this, which is a testament to the both of you as well. Players drafted in the U.S., the odds are literally, based on this year's draft, based on population density, 1 in 1.3 million. So it's a lottery ticket. And you work to get the lottery ticket, though. You're blessed with some traits, but you got to work at it because even great athletes don't always make it to the NFL for a variety of reasons. So when you hear those numbers, respectively, how does that make you feel? You've been a part of this, and how these guys must feel. They'll know it later in life when they experience what you guys experienced, Tom.
Yeah, Jim and I, our careers are behind us. So when you hear about those types of numbers, they're still as shocking as when we were coming up through the ranks and that we had an opportunity to make it into the NFL. And I really admire a lot of these kids that are playing football nowadays and a lot of the girls that are playing in the Flag Football League in Chicago, because football is not an easy sport, especially when you're going out to those fields in the middle of the summer and they're asking you to go out there and sweat and grind if you're 9, 10, 11 years old, and it doesn't make it easy. So I'm happy for every one of these kids that are benefiting their life and, like Turner said, his family's life with the football success.
Yeah, every player's got a story of why they wanted to be in the National Football League. For me, I was 9 years old. My dad took me to the Pontiac Silverdome, and I saw Doug Williams throw an 80-yard touchdown pass. And I remember looking up my dad and saying, "Dad, that's what I want to do." And I knew right then that's what I was going to do. And, and it sticks with you. But every player's got their story of what led them to making it to the National Football League. So whatever that story is, those players got to keep on tapping into it in order to stay, because as Tom knows, it is a lot of hard work, it's a lot of dedication, and you got to love football. You got to love it in order to do it.
All right, lightning round, so we got to be quick with these. All right, I promised the NFC North. The one thing that stuck out to me about the Green Bay Packers is just adding more at wide receiver. Speed with Matthew Golden, adding Sevion Williams, who's a Deebo Samuel-type guy, Mecole Hardman, and they got Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed and Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs. That's about the Green Bay Packers. Quick thought, Tom?
Golden. That was the one pick because they've been void of taking wide receivers high in the draft for a while, and he's the type of guy that can now set that new speed edge for the division.
Yeah, and at Detroit, Tom. Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, they tried to trade for DK Metcalf and even Pickens, and they went speed, as Tom mentioned. So they will be a threat deep.
3 new interior offensive linemen now for the Minnesota Vikings with Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, and Will Fries. Darisaw back. They got to protect J.J. McCarthy and open that run game, Tom.
Again, I think offensive and defensive linemen on any football team that can come and increase the competitiveness at such an important position, especially when you have J. McCarthy coming aboard, important.
All right, Jim, you have the last one. Jim, you have the Detroit Lions. You get Aiden Hutchinson healthy, Aleem McNeil back. They drafted Tyleik Williams. How much more dangerous is the division champs?
Yeah, Aleem McNeil, they got him back late in the year, so he's healing up. They also got Levi Onwuzurike. We know they had a ton of injuries on defense, and I believe it was the first Egyptian player, Azasin, who they drafted later. He does provide pass rush, so they did get an edge rusher and helped out their interior D-line with Malik.
Guys, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. That'll do it tonight for Bears Weekly. Thanks to all of our producers, including Jack McGrath in studio. This has been Bears Weekly on the radio home of the Chicago Bears, ESPN Chicago, with Bleck and Abdallah. Our next. Good night, everybody.